So I have the honor of introducing Jonathan Ward, and I could tell you about all his credentials and everything that is in his bio in this book, but I'd rather share with you a little bit more. For those of you who weren't in the technical assistance group when we were visiting, you don't know what technical assistance is or how vital it is to you until you've gotten it, until you've gotten to experience it. Until it becomes real on your plate and to look at some of those things. As an organization over the last year, we've had to rely on a lot of different sources. The USDA and all of the people who have been helping us get through this transition period of the last year. Me in particular, being the finance coordinator, what's been very valuable to me is all those financial numbers and putting that all together and having a really good understanding of where we were. And that all has to do with the matrix, and it all has to do with those numbers and actually seeing it. You can see it yourself. You can say, okay, that number says minus $160,000. Okay, what does that mean, really? So that's what the matrix starts to address. That's what they get into. Okay, why is that number $160,000 minus, or whatever it is? So, and over the past year, our organization has gotten very close with Jonathan. We have a weekly call, sometimes with an entire group, sometimes with just Jonathan. We actually now refer to him as the caregiver, or wow, whisperer. He is the home care whisperer. He's talked us off the ledge a couple times, brought some reason to our thinking, some reality to our thinking with the numbers, and so he is the home care whisperer. And I encourage anybody who, it's hard when, especially after you've been in the business for a while, you don't think you need any help. You think, we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet, and we should be okay. But I encourage everybody to always reach out for that technical assistance. Don't think that you have to do it on your own. There's wonderful resources and wonderful help. So I won't talk anymore. Jonathan, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Great. I didn't know I was going to be getting a new title today. As soon as I walked in here the other day to my board whisperer, I'm honored, and thank you so much. It's as I always say, you guys are the ones doing the real hard work day to day. I have the privilege of running the numbers and having your ear, and you allow me to give you some advice. But you're the ones working really hard day in and day out, and it's a real pleasure in my job to be able to work with you. So good job. Let's see, got the advancer. There we go. All right, so I'm Jonathan Ward. I'm a business consultant at the ICA Group. I'm an analyst there. I do a lot of analysis. So this type of presentation on measuring business financials, business operations, and how we can really track how a business is performing is really close to home for me. In particular, I'm trying to blend 2 worlds. You see the subtitle, Uncovering the Iron Triangle of Home Care Finance. The ICA Group also does a lot of work in childcare. It's one of the strategic industries that we work in. And they have an iron triangle of childcare finance that talks about what 3 metrics can you look at for your business to see if you have a strong business or not a strong business. So can we get there today in this class? Can we try to figure out what are the iron metrics for home care? So here we are. This is the ICA Group. I don't know if we had a slide like this yesterday, but these are all the people at the ICA Group, and some of them in the room. It's a great team here. We've been around for 40 years. A strategic consulting organization centered in employee ownership. And there we are. Can everyone hear me? All right, do I need to use a microphone? Yeah, okay. I don't know what I would do with 2 things, one in each hand. That makes it easy. All right, so here's the agenda for today. First, we'll start off with an introduction. We'll kind of set the stage. I'm going to try to tell you why metrics are important, why watching performance, watching your data, tracking your data, if you're not doing that already, is important. Try to give you some concepts about how other people think about it, dashboards, ways to present metrics in a visible way. And then also I just like dropping fancy lean Japanese words, kaizen, the idea of continuous improvement in a business through watching metrics, really understanding what turns the dial, and doing that through the accumulation of a lot of small changes from employees, people on the ground who know the business and know how it works. And I think metrics and continuous improvement are very closely connected. Then we'll talk about what are metrics specific to home care, give you some ideas of things that you could be tracking in the business. Maybe you could share ideas of things that you're already tracking. We have a nice example that we'll get into to look at some of the metrics. I stole the fourth bullet down there from the Home Care Pulse benchmarking survey. They have a great recruitment strategy that's all based on metrics. So maybe we'll try to tie it all together. And then hopefully end with another example and then discussing what is the iron triangle of home care. And we can carry that discussion on through the night in bowling. We can talk about our favorite metrics and keep it going all night. I know it's the end of the day, but we don't have to stop after this. We're here all night. I stole this line too, so I'm trying to convince you that metrics are important. So here's the question: how far would you drive without your gauges, without knowing how much gas is in your tank? If your engine's overheating, if you need an oil change, it's going to be difficult and it's going to be scary. How do you know if you're going the right way? So this is what metrics and measurement about your business is. It's to be able to say, how am I doing? And know that comparatively to history, to your industry, and then to know if actions that you've taken inside the company are helping your business or are they not? And how can you do that efficiently? Is an efficient way passing out income statements and balance sheets and saying, are we improving? Or is it trying to break it down into a visual, refined way to say, what are the key drivers about my business? The turnover rate, maybe my average bill rate, my wage rate. What are these things that are critical to how I operate? And yeah, they all combine in different ways, but can we watch gauges somehow? So what is a metric? A quantifiable measure that is used to track and assess the status of a business process. It really just means something that I'm measuring. Metrics exist on a variety of levels inside a company. You have individual departments, functions that are getting very specific. The recruitment department cares deeply about what is the recruitment interview show rate? What is the app to interview translation rate? What is our callback rate? Those are all metrics for how a recruitment department works, and how you're trending on one thing or another can lead you to say, do I need to fix this part of my business, or is it doing okay? There's also executive level metrics. Overall, how big is my business? How profitable am I? How many caregivers did I hire last month? Those are all metrics. They all have specific audiences that they're talking to, and the need for a level of detail given those audiences. So, anyone heard of Peter Drucker, famous management consultant, a lot more famous than I? This is a phrase that's really connected to him. You've probably heard it before. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. I think there's a lot of iterations out there. You can't measure, you can't manage what you can't measure, that sort of thing. So metrics, think 3 M's. The point of metrics is first to be able to measure something, to understand whether it's effective, whether it's working. Once you've measured something, then you can monitor it to see how it changes over time. And once you're watching it and monitoring it, you know when you need to take action. You have goals. When we dip below a certain level, when we reach our goal, that's going to prompt us to take action. And metrics enable you to take action at the right time and take limited resources. There's only so many admin positions in a co-op, only you can do so many things. So where should we be focusing on in our business? Metrics allow you to answer that question. And a lot of people in business talk. So this guy, if anyone's seen him, this is Mark Lemonis from The Profit on TV. One of those shows that I watch sometime about how you manage a small business. But he's always saying, know your numbers, know your numbers. That's the key to small business. He says up here, it's the roadmap to success. And I would say at the top level, it's for every business owner, you should know these 3 things about your business. So let's talk at the top level performance metrics. How big is your company? Annual revenue in the last 12 months. And how big is that? How many weekly billable hours do you have? How does that translate to the revenue of the company? How big are you? Gross profit margin, how profitable are you? And that relates to how big do you need to be to cover your overhead costs? Are you going to be able to afford to give your caregivers a raise? It's your profitability of your direct operations. And then expenses as a percentage of your gross profit. How are you spending the money that you get as a result of your direct operations? On rent, on admin, on insurance, and on other things. So at the starting point, we should be able to talk about these 3 things about our business, or some close approximation of them. Maybe it's not gross profit, but it's caregiver wages and our bill rate for clients. But those kind of get to the same level. Of course, once you get into a specific industry, a specific type of business, a specific department within a business, you can get very specific, right? Like that recruitment show metric. Industries are tracking all sorts of metrics. Billable hours is common to us up top, but it might be in a manufacturing company, production man hours, product yield, work in progress, how much scrap did we have, how accurate is our inventory. These are supposed to be key drivers of your business, and it's on the job of all of you to figure out what those are. Again, childcare, as I mentioned in the beginning, they've had consultants and professional organizations and childcare centers that have done a lot of work thinking about what are the key drivers of success in the business. And yeah, you can track a lot of things about a childcare business, but if I know these 3 things about you, I can tell what position you're in, and I probably can start to triage what problems you have. How's your enrollment doing? Your teachers are prepared to staff 40. You have 30 there, so you're only at 75% enrollment. I know you need to be at 85% to be stable. Are you collecting your debts? Are you able to cover your costs? If you're at 95% enrollment, but you're not profitable, maybe you need to raise your rates. If you're not profitable, you're at 50% enrollment, maybe it's a marketing issue. But you break the business down into some key metrics or measures that really tell you a lot about a child care business or maybe a home care business. And that's the point. They make management of these businesses simple if you can break them down to metrics. This is something I found online. This is, of all things, the Facilities Management Division of the US Department of Energy. This is their metrics. These are their metrics. They have 3 audiences or 3 functions. Customers, they care about reporting our lead time and being on time. Quality comes from survey results and our uptime overall. And resources in terms of employee turnover and inventory and cost and jobs. These are what executives in Facilities Management Department of Energy meet regularly to look at. Not profit and loss statements, not balance sheets. We might get there if we need to get there, but those tell me how my unit is doing at a high level. And they're a lot easier for people to understand than the other version. So metrics need a couple things. Because you can measure everything about a business, you should probably be focused on what you're measuring. Try to break it down to the key performance indicators or drivers of the company. So metrics really need focus. Here's an example down below. We're tracking 2 different metrics right here. One of them is really key and one of them is supporting. On the bottom, I'm tracking my net change in caregivers. So this month, I dropped 1. Combination of hiring and turnover led me to -1. That repeated a couple times. Then I flipped into black and now I'm at 2. This helps me track my workforce. But really what I'm trying to get at is scale. My goal is to get to 900 billable hours per week. This is a metric that helps me realize my goal. And you can watch how one metric of your business affects another and connects to your top level organizational goal, in this case of growing 10%. Once you can connect one metric with a goal, you can start to ask very specific questions about why that happened. Because you know that led to that, which is below the goal. So they're leading you to the right questions. So metrics need focus, because you can measure everything, so we need to pick what's most important. They also need context. If you know that your company has a 50% turnover rate, is that good? Is that bad? How do you know? Well, if you were looking at industry benchmarks, you'd actually be doing pretty good. Because the national turnover rate for home care companies is 65%. It's really high. So if you're 50%, you're doing really a lot better than the competition. Right? A lot better than those private pay home care franchises that are popping up in your area. But maybe last year you were at 40% turnover, and now you're at 50%. So compared to the industry, we're doing better, but a problem happened since last year. So metrics need context. You can't measure something without goals and without history, without how other people are doing. That's important. And we mentioned it a lot, the Home Care Pulse benchmarking study. This report is awesome. It is well worth every penny that it takes you to get this. It's like 200 pages. It's put out by Home Care Pulse, but it's like a collaboration. Raise your hand if you've seen this year. A couple of them. This will tell you what your turnover should be, what your wages are, what everything is, broken down by region, broken down by revenue size of the company. Yeah.
I think if people take the survey, like if you're a home care business, you take the survey, you get it for free.
I think that's right.
If you take the survey as a home care business, you get the survey for free.
It's really worth it. It's like 200 pages of gold, and then they have expert articles written in the whole thing, and I stole one of them for later in the presentation. It's just really a smart piece of writing, and it's totally supportive of metrics. So they're not paying me to say that, but I just like it so much. And I think so we got a lot of things in our head. We know it's important to measure. We can measure a lot of things. We know we need to be focused, and we know we need to have context. Well, how does it all come together in a simple way? So dashboards are kind of a, I wouldn't say new, because we've been talking about it in business for a while, but for a lot of companies, they're new. It's the idea of moving away from looking at reports to looking at highly visual, simple documents that lead you to ask the right questions. And to what degree can we automate the development of them? You might have some software that you're working with, MyCNA Jobs or something like that, that actually has dashboards built into that, or you might need to create your own. So I'll try to give you some examples. This is one I mocked up yesterday or something. So this is my idea of maybe what a dashboard could look like. It's up for all of you to figure out what are your right drivers for your business. For one thing today, we have 100% private pay businesses in here, and then we have largely Medicaid businesses. Dashboards should not look the same for those companies, right? So we can't use any standard boilerplate. But if we look up top here, we have a couple different sections. I'm looking at for recruitment and retention, tracking my applications, and I'm tracking my hires. Right? Pretty simple to understand. Right? What happened? So real drop-off so far in October compared to September. Or was that a spike in September? I don't know. I'm going to go ask that question to figure out. I can clearly see what's happening. Tracking turnover, involuntary turnover, voluntary turnover. Right? The voluntary one is the one to worry about. How could someone from your agency go to leave to work at another home care company or retail job? You really need to get on top of that versus the involuntary turnover, which they were a bad fit. It didn't work out. There's a lot less you can do. But if you're just looking at it in terms of turnover, you can't get to those same conclusions. And this is the one you've seen before, the net change in workforce. So just some ideas of how you can look at the business. So recruitment, I have it at the top, my business metrics, my billable hours. This is the size of my company. Am I growing or staying stable over time? How am I tracking in November so far? It just started. What are my bill rates like? My average bill rates. So this is applicable private pay or Medicaid. The higher your bill rates get, the easier it's going to be able to give your staff a raise. So we're watching that. And gross margin, how profitable are you overall? I love satisfaction in there too. That was a great idea that came out of our roundtable up there. So I was suggesting to measure that on 2 levels, caregivers and clients. If you're saying, what, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10? Kind of envisioning like a net promoter score type survey where you just ask your caregivers on a scale of 1 to 10 each month, would you recommend this place to a friend or not? Has anyone heard of net promoter? It's a real simple way to, you basically ask people, and then people will say 9 or a 10 are your promoters, 6 to 0 are your detractors. You forget about 8s and 7s in the middle, and you subtract your detractors from the promoters, and that gives you a number that's between negative 100% and plus 100%. For it. But it's a simple number to look at over time, and you have to ask people 1 question a month, right? And you're just tracking the numbers. So I'm at 7 this month, 7.3 next month. Oh, satisfaction's going up. 6.7 next month. Oh, what happened? Just a real simple way to be able to think about something like satisfaction. There was another great idea that came up from Nora about number of sick days as a proxy for satisfaction. So it doesn't have to be net promoter. It can be you thinking about how many sick days a caregiver takes. I think that's really cool. All right, so that's one. That dashboard had a lot of numbers on it. The gauge example in the beginning had a lot of charts. So this is this is technically what I think about when I'm creating a dashboard for the company. The monitoring, the trending is all right there. It's highly visual. It can kind of be hard to see in numbers what's happening. It's a lot easier to see with line charts oftentimes. So how can you pick 4 or 5 metrics for your board, for your management team, create graphs for them, and present it, and that's your dashboard. Makes managing a business a lot easier. So that's the point, right? Using metrics allows you to make decisions about your business a lot more easily. What are our biggest revenue sources? Are we accomplishing our goals? Monitoring to know when we need to make a change. Put your resources where it's needed most. Do I have a retention problem or a recruitment problem? I know my workforce is going down each month, but where should I focus? It's going to allow you to put the resources where it's needed. Metrics can help you answer tough questions about your business. Do we need to raise rates or grow clients? Well, remember about the childcare example. You can look at those 3 metrics and you can lead you to answer pretty quickly with the ratios of them. Are our recruitment channels reaching our potential? Have we done planning for what our recruitment channels can bring in and how are they tracking to date? If one is underperforming, I might say, well, why is that underperforming? Based on what my goal was or what my planning for. And again, continuous improvement is the heart of this all. What this is driven by, the engine, and we've heard about this in the beginning, are employees on the ground level in the office, in the caregiving force, caregivers coming into the office, who are able to say, is there an easier way to do this? Not revolutionary, just like a slightly easier way to do this. Or can we be more successful doing something another way? And the accumulation of those slight improvements are really transformational. The companies like Toyota, really spearheaded a lot of this thinking that business greatness was not about making huge revolutionary decisions. It was about leveraging your employees to move dials on metrics in a really small, granular way up from the shop floor into participatory management. So metrics really support that way, or they're essential for managing a company that way. If you're getting sold on this, you're trying to think about, well, how can I get into metrics? This might be a process. You can start a meeting where we say, well, what metrics should we be looking at, and what are our goals for how we should be performing? You're going to start monitoring those metrics. You might need to start tracking data. That could be an interim step there. Have regular feedback meetings about it. Annually, say, how is my whole metric system doing? Are we tracking the right metrics? Maybe make some changes, and then keep going. Pretty simple diagram. All right, so any questions on that? I tried to sell you on why measuring aspects of your business are important and why you should do that, and the great benefits. Are you sold? So high-fiving in midair.
I was really excited to have a copy of your presentation. It was really, there was a lot of really interesting stuff in there, and I'm not positive for everything.
Yeah, I guess I get to say what the one from Fifth Park. It should already be online, or it should already be. It's posted. Yeah, I switched to order some slides, but it should be there. And there's a lot. I don't know if we'll be able to finish on time. So if we don't finish on time, then maybe we can continue to talk offline about the other stuff. All right. So real quick, now that you've been sold on the idea of it, I'm just trying to give you some examples. I'm going to throw a lot at you in the next couple of slides. These are all the things you could be tracking in your home care business. Just putting ideas right in there. On the client side, right? People that we serve. Where are they coming from? How are they being referred? In terms of generating new business, what are our close rates in terms of interviewing prospective private pay clients and then actually having them come in to be admitted? How is our client satisfaction? How much do we need to spend to acquire a new client? And then getting really nitty gritty, maybe in your sales department within the agency, what's our reaction time to responding to clients when they come in? How many number of calls do we have to make? Right, we're tracking things. Very applicable to generating more private pay business or a lot of these. A little bit different on the Medicaid side. Financial and operational, you've heard a lot of these before. Top level billable hours per week, are we growing or not? Average rate per billable hour, are we getting our rates to where they need to be so we can make higher investments, give raises to the staff? Payer sources, where are our dollars coming from? What % private pay versus VA versus Medicaid and so on. Productivity of office staff. And then you can even get into lifetime value type calculations. Based on the we got some excitement for I got cost per hire in a couple slides. And then on recruitment and retention, we've heard a lot about these today. It's kind of getting nitty gritty. Total active caregivers, but then unfilled shifts per week, total job applicants, and then getting into the process. How many interviews completed, background checks, onboarding, started first shift. You can get really specific into your process and how people mature and to become full-time caregivers, and to see if there's a place where people start dropping off, that you can really start to address that gap. Is it really at 90 days, or is it really between when they have an interview and they actually start their first day? Is it an orientation problem? I'm very responsive. All right, so there's a lot of different examples of metrics that you saw on the last slides, and I think the deck will help. You have to bundle it somehow. You have to make a choice about what ones you're going to look at. The top one was an example in a home health agency. They wrote an article about what metrics they look at for their company. This is their dashboard. And the bottom one is a very private pay focused home health agency. So let's just look at the top one right here. They're looking at really just 4 categories of metrics: revenue, gross margin, operating margin, so how profitable are you overall, and then days sales outstanding. That's a collections metric. Are you actually collecting from your clients, or are you just billing them and they're not paying you? That's a cash health type metric, right? They're getting a little nitty gritty on revenue and gross margin. They're looking at revenue by caregiver, by referral source, and the gross margin by contract. They have different payers at different rates with different arrangements. How profitable is this contract compared to this contract compared to the next one? So 4 metrics, get a little gritty on the top 2. So maybe that's what your dashboard or set of metrics will look All right. So moving into one example, told you a lot of things. We'll try to walk you through an example that feels a little different. Has anyone heard of the 5 whys? It's an operational thing, getting to the root cause, asking why 5 times. Yeah? Yeah. That's cool. So we're going to do that for home care, but I got to give you the Washington, D.C. example because I'm here and this is what I learned in school. So the 30-second aside, maybe it'll take a minute. So the Washington Monument in D.C. was eroding. It was eroding. People wanted to figure out why it was eroding. We can't have a national treasure start eroding, right? So the people who are working on maintenance are trying to figure that out. And so let's ask why 5 times to figure it out. And that's what they did. So why is it eroding? Because it gets washed too often. Oh, so you have a monument that's getting washed. And the detergent is starting to break down the sides of the monument. So maybe we need to get new detergent. Maybe we need to get a new company with a gentler scrub. Well, are we getting to the root cause? Let's ask why again. So why is it eroding? Well, there's a lot of poop on it. I hate to say it. There's a lot of bird poop on the monument. That's why it has to get washed off. Because we have to wash it because the birds are there. So do we need a bird getting away device where you chase away the birds? What's that? Well, why are so many birds there? Because there's a lot of spiders on the monument. A lot of spiders everywhere. Birds eat spiders. They're eating them. They have to go to the bathroom. That's how birds work. All right, so we need a spider deterrent. No, I'm not sure. Why are all the spiders there? Well, because there's a lot of bugs. Spiders eat bugs. Birds eat. It's like a circle of life. So there's a lot of bugs around the monument. Well, do we need to spray bug spray everywhere there? Well, why are there so many bugs around this monument? Oh, well, good question. Because the lights come on at the Washington Monument 20 minutes before all the other monuments. So all the bugs go over there. So how do we fix the eroding of the monument problem? We set the timer to have the lights go on at the same time. And that fixed the problem. That's the 5 whys, right? It's not about the church, it's not about anything. It's about a switch and the candle thing. So, share that example with friends. It's fun. You're in D.C. And now we're going to check out the same thing with here. So check out this situation. We're just kind of playing around with the idea of metrics and how they can be helpful. So we're looking at this. Why are our bill rates up? I know it's looking good. Maybe we're going to be able to do some raises. Our bill rates are going up. So why? Okay. Taking on more business, high rate business. You have some real high rate private pay clients coming in. Oh, good. That's a positive thing. Well, why is the high rate business up? Oh, because we're getting new referrals. We're getting new referrals. The existing clients are referring other people saying, this is a great company, you should go get care from them. So then we have more private pay clients coming in, and then the rates are going up. All right, so maybe we need to really boost up our client referral program. Well, let's ask why again. Why are client referrals up? Now we're getting there. Clients are happier. Clients are happier. That makes sense, right? If you're happier, you're more satisfied, you're going to want to refer more people to your business. So, client happiness has been going up. But why has it been going up? What did we do? They're happy because turnover's down. And actually, why is turnover down? Because the company made some investments in retention. They spent more time on it. They spent more money in it. Maybe they did something like that. I made up the example so you can fill in your blank. But it can tell you why using metrics leads you from why am I becoming more profitable? Because I had my admin staff start a mentor program. I'm becoming more profitable because I started a mentor program. And you can start to connect those dots once you have the data to talk about your company and say, how does your action affect the measures of how your company is performing? So just a little example about how you can go through and how one metric can lead to another. So, how are we doing on time? All right, so this is what I stole, admittedly, from the Home Care Pulse report. This is a metrics-based recruitment strategy. When I read it, kind of getting ready for this presentation, I said, this is how it all comes together. Recruitment is a big theme, obviously, today. Metrics is the theme of this presentation. So let's talk about recruitment and how metrics can drive a good recruitment strategy. So somebody else wrote the article, and I stole it. I put it into PowerPoint slides. And I got to give credit to the people who wrote the article, mycnajobs.com. I have to tell you, I was really impressed by their article on Home Care Pulse. I don't know a lot about this company. Co-op Care has thought about using their service. I don't think you are right now. But this article was really written. It was written by their CEO, and I could just tell it was very refined in how they were thinking about recruitment in the industry, very strategically, but in a data-driven way. So here's how it works. There's 3 steps. We're going to spend most of the time on the first one. And this is the hard thing to do. Build a predictable recruitment model. Answering the question, how much do I need to spend to hire 10 people? Wouldn't it be great to know that? Wouldn't it be great to be able to quantify that investment? Well, that's what the top home care companies are doing. Figuring out cost per hire, what it is through this acquisition channel versus another one, What's the potential of this recruitment channel versus another, right? So you can actually get to a stage where how you want your business to operate is predictable. And wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? So the first thing we have to do is we have to benchmark our own recruitment processes. So we'll talk a lot about maybe what those metrics are. Figure out what our cost per hire is. That helps us do a budget. Figuring out what our different recruitment channels are, and do we have enough flow through them? And then, do we have goals for recruitment that relate to how big we want to grow our company or how we want to stabilize, something like that. So the first step of this is you need to do your benchmarking. This is the example they use from the article, benchmarking your recruitment sources, your callback rates, your interview show-up rates, passing screening, accepting position. We're really trying to understand how our recruitment process works, right? Where are the holes? Figuring out internally how we've been operating, is that as efficient as possible? Next thing is about cost per hire. So it's going to take a little bit of work to get there. Cost per hire has two components. We have our direct costs, background checks. Maybe you can consider an advertising budget outlay as some kind of direct or real cost. We also have the indirect cost, or the admin staff time, making those advertisements, interviewing the new hires, processing paperwork, reading resumes, and all of that. But the idea is you can start to quantify it and figure out how much time it takes to do that function, how much you have to pay someone on your admin team to do, and then how much you have to pay for advertising and background checks to hire someone. It is solvable, and that's part of the question. Once you solve that answer, by just sitting down and thinking it through, you have the starting point to your recruitment budget, and that's a very important thing. Recruitment channel throughput. It's the idea, maybe you're going to be bringing some candidates from online, some from referrals, some from the job center. These channels, you just need to kind of lay out how they work. What's the potential of that channel? Is this a channel that I can expect high throughput for? Like online, I can get a lot of applications, but also how many of those applications are going to turn into hires? So we're just trying to break down, think about our channels. And really, you're always going to need some combination, that is together exceeding your goal. And if you can start to boil these plans down from high-level goals for your business, how many people do I need to hire a month? Well, in order to answer that, I need to do some financial modeling around my business to figure out, am I profitable? How much do I want to grow? Think through those things. That'll relate down to how many people you need to hire. And then you think about, do my recruitment channels, are they able to give me that? Right? And if the answer is no, we need to add more recruitment channels, or think about ways to bolster existing ones. That's not rocket science. It's just making sure you answer every question as you go along in this so it becomes predictable. You should be thinking, yeah, this is pretty simple, but it sounds like a lot of work. That's the right feeling. It's simple, but it's a lot of work. But once you get there and you automate and you have these systems up there, you just know how your business works and know how to change it. All right, so that's all the pre-work that happens right there. Once you've done all of that, you can generate a budget, and you can start moving around numbers in your budget, and then you can start to optimize. Because you know how your processes work, you know what your budget is, so where are you actually going to spend the money? This is what an example of maybe step 2 might look like. Again, stolen from the article, it's great. This company has a monthly goal of hiring, let's say, 13 caregivers per month. They use 3 channels: local CNA school, online job board, and a newspaper ad. They've calculated their cost per hire for each. Local CNA school has a much lower cost per hire than the other, but it has a lot lower ceiling. In terms of, they only think they can get 3 a month from the CNA school, as opposed to 9 from the job board and 10 from the newspaper ad. It's 10 a month from a newspaper. This company's confident, right? But this is really helping you at this one step. It's able to say, is 3 plus 9 is 12 plus 10 is 22, is that greater than 13? So I have to hit about 60% of my potential from these recruitment channels to hit my goal. Does that seem realistic? Kind of in the ballpark, right? I can get a max of 22 a month. I need to get 13 a month. Do I have enough channels? You might be right about there. Right? We need to see how they performed in the past. But that's just a check that we're doing to make sure we have enough people in the pipeline. And then the last is, we're not going to spend too much time here, but then it's just about optimizing. Once you understand your business, you understand your goals, you can get nitty-gritty into specific steps and how to improve them. You can make slight improvements in a very targeted way to have big differences. So you have all this information, then the fun part happens, right? You can start playing around with it all. All right, so 2 sections left. Any questions on that recruitment strategy? Makes sense, right? It's just like a lot of work, but eventually. All right, so here's just another example, and then we're going to end with this, the great discussion piece that we can carry on through the night about what metrics should we be using. So this is just another to help you think about an example of how it could be used. Check out this situation. I'm trying to take a second to understand what's happening with this, with the company. Charts are a lot quicker than the numbers to read. The visual side of it. You know, so when I look at the top, I really can't understand what's going on. You know, I know something weird happened in May, in January, we're low, we're higher in the other months, but the numbers up top don't tell me too much. You know, and a lot of it looks like I'm operating pretty consistently. I'm hiring about 2 people a month. So you got to dive a little bit deeper here. Ratios can help you do that. Ratio, just dividing one thing by another. So here what we've used, we've calculated that, we've taken that data up top and we calculated a callback rate and an interview show rate. So using the same numbers up top, I just divided them and I got that. And now you can see that there is something that happens in May. And it actually is different than January. Even though it's small like January, something different is happening in May. I have a really good callback and interview show rate in May. It's drastically better than what I've had. The quality of candidates that come in May are going through to the hiring process, are coming to the interviews. These are not people who are just loosely submitting their applications. Okay, why? Well, take a look at where the applications are coming from. Moving through the first 6 months of the year, the online job board has had a strong presence, right? April and May, that starts to change. What takes its place? The local CNA school. It starts to tell the story, right? Online applications, we get a lot of them, but the interview rates and the callback rates are lower than if we're working with the CNA school. Is this telling us where we should be putting our money? Perhaps. So then we look a little bit more. And you don't need to spend over all this data, but if you're tracking it, then you're saying, okay, how many people applied to the job board? How many people got hired? And then, how much have I spent on it? You know, I figured for the job board, I have to put about $300 a month in to getting that going. You know, spend about $2,000 in those 6 months. The CNA school, I just had that one big event that I held back there. I got in there, I kind of sponsored a conference, a workshop that they had there, and I spent $750, but I don't have to invest a lot in that. And then in newspaper, I pay $100 every other month to put in an article. Right? So you can distill it down to saying, all right, well, how am I doing because of this plan? Well, I've hired a total of 2.5 people a month. So my goal was 2 a month, so I'm doing better than that. The majority of my people are coming through the local CNA school. That's what the data is saying. The hire rate's great. It's so much different than newspapers. Right? It's 53%. So 1 out of 2 people who apply, I'm hiring from the CNA school as opposed to 1 out of 3 from the other sources. My admin team's going to have to spend a lot more time going through interviews, right, and reading applications that don't go anywhere, as opposed to those candidates which come through a little bit more refined and maybe more suitable to be working in that position. So what does that do? It brings my cost per hire down. Right? So now we're looking at, again, we found out by looking at the metrics that maybe something in the beginning, where is it here? Oh, no, it was right on the slide. So if you look up at the top, you might say, oh, online job board, that's where all my action's coming from, right? And still it's a good hire rate. But once you break it down to metrics, you just see that this middle line is so much outperforming your other areas that it makes you think, can we do more there? And if that's the conclusion that you were led to, you're understanding how metrics can help you make simple decisions about the business. All right, this is where all you come in.
Jonathan, I have a question.
Yeah, thanks.
So, if you couldn't do more there, I mean, I guess because one of the takeaways here is like, if you can't do more from the local CNA school, and your requirement is 2.5 or 2 per month, if you take those other out, you're going to fall below. Right. So in some ways, you could also learn like, yeah, we've got these like inefficient, crummy things, but we have to do a bunch of crummy things and these good things as well.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely, yeah. You need the combination, right? No, it's an important point. You can be led that you want to do more here. Maybe you start thinking, I want to drop the other ones. That's not right. I don't know if anyone caught this too. Total hire, one from the newspaper article, 1 in a month. But back here, we were expecting 10. That's another area, right? We budgeted for 10, we're only getting 1. This also leads me to believe, can we do something else with the recruitment channel? You can get into it. But yeah, you need a combination, you have to be spread out. And surprisingly, referrals are not the best source for whatever reason. It's not part of this example, so that at least All right, what would your key metrics be? Can we make the iron triangle for home care finance? A couple of minutes here. So again, you're thinking through, what metrics should I be watching for my business? Right, so think about your different audiences. What do they need to know to say, is the business performing well or is it struggling? What numbers can I tell them? What would that number look like? Key operational areas, that's how I think about it a lot. What's the best number or measure in the company to tell me about sustainability? What's the best one to tell me about profitability, about my cash collections, about the state of my workforce and the client satisfaction? I say, what's the best way I can describe that? And then maybe the last point down there, ensure that benchmarks exist. You can divide anything by anything and then keep dividing it, and you might get a number that you can track over time. But it's probably a good place to start with that benchmarking report, seeing what everyone else tracks and good industry data is about, and then you can just start tracking the same thing. So at least you have the comparables right away. But you can find something probably that works for your company that no one else is using and is really smart too. So don't feel constrained. So what do you think? What would maybe just kind of popcorn it for a couple minutes, and then I'll show you my idea, and then cut to only 2 more slides left. What do you think might go here? What are some of, you only can pick 3, what are some of the things that at the top level tell me how my business is doing, right? Maybe in a couple of different categories, maybe overall. Any ideas? What should be on home care's iron triangle?
Revenue.
Revenue? And we said that about revenue, yeah. It tells me about the size of the business. Okay, do I need to know anything else about how big my business is to know if it's healthy or not? Hours? Yeah. Hours I kind of put in that same big category. Was there, I heard a,
Client base.
I'm sure that's it. What was client?
Client base.
Client base, yeah. How many clients that you have? Yep. The number of caregivers, right? Yeah, that's a key match that has to happen. What's my client base? What's my caregiver base like, right? We all know what happens when those goes out of whack.
Operating expenses, operating overhead.
Now we're going into some different areas. We were kind of on size in the beginning, but operating, right? This is about efficiency. How am I spending my money? How productive am I inside? Operating expenses, right? How I spend my money compared to how other companies spend their money. What's missing so far in the triangle?
Caregiver satisfaction, client satisfaction.
Turnover rate or demographics?
Turnover, demographics.
Billable rate.
Billable rate. How many dollars per hour are you getting in revenue? What happens when your billable rate goes up? You can get raises, you're more profitable, that seems. Well, there's only 3 points to a triangle. We're getting quite a list for it.
I'm just thinking, how many triangles you gotta have?
Yeah, the hexagon, the iron hexagon over there.
Yeah, triangles are good for childcare.
Yeah, we need to
You need 12 guns for home care.
Iron polygon. Any others? We got 1 more minute before I got to switch to the slide. Yeah, Nick?
So profit metric.
Profit, yeah, profitability overall. It's the result of everything we're doing. Are we losing cash, gaining cash? Last one?
Dollars per hour. Dollars per hour.
Dollars per hour, yeah, like a bill rate or something.
Maybe even average hours worked a week per caregiver.
Oh, I like that. What would you be trying to get after that, average hours?
It almost is an efficiency thing because you do put, you put money in to each caregiver with payroll and everything, and the more hours they're working, it's, the better it is.
Like using your capacity.
Using your capacity.
Yeah,
That's
right.
exactly, yeah.
Great. Nice job, us. And don't be shy the rest of the night. You'll get some ideas, some adult beverages, and keep going. So this is just what I mocked up. This is an idea. I don't know if it's right, but this is kind of what came to my mind. There's some honorable mentions down at the bottom. A lot of you guys mentioned this. Cost coverage, that's profitability. Turnover rates on the board. Gross margin. That's maybe the one I'm the most, so gross margin, this relates obviously to what your average bill rates are, also what your average rates, wage rates for caregivers are. This is probably something that you can watch when it gets high enough, you're ready to do a raise. When it gets high enough, then you can think about expansion of the pro-business activities. When it's lower, it's going to depress your ability to cover costs. So got to figure that out, but maybe that could be a bill rate or something. But anyway, there's a lot of connections between these things, right? The lower our gross margin is, maybe our bill rates are going down, the less able we're going to be to cover our costs, right? The more that turnover goes up, the less able we're going to be to cover our costs. As gross margin improves and wages can presumably go up, turnover should go down. So there's a little interconnection. I think it is missing something about cash. There is an idea that, especially for some payers out there, it's really hard to turn revenue earned into cash. Some extremely hard. Some almost don't want to pay you at all. So this can be an important one. And then client referrals as well, especially if you're thinking about a private pay type business where generating that demand is a lot harder than a Medicaid type business. Then you're going to be, what is this? Is it client satisfaction, client referrals? What says how competitive I am compared to all of the other franchises and companies out there that are trying to get that 17% piece of the home care market? So what is that metric? Anyway, great ideas for everyone. Thanks a lot for all your participation today and for you for allowing me to stand here doing the presentation. Thanks a lot.